Hey everybody, Pastor Greg here. I'm excited about life, and I know that you are too. Why? Because life is so good, and it keeps getting better all the time. There are so many things happening here at CSC this month, and I want to make sure that you know about them. The first thing is next Sunday on December 18th, we're having our second annual Home for the Holidays service and potluck. So if you're in the tri-state area, Connecticut, New York, New Jersey, wherever you may be, make yourself available to be here and celebrate with us, celebrate the holiday season, and enjoy some amazingly good food afterwards. On December 21st, I'm going to be holding a visioning session on the winter solstice. And so it's an opportunity for you to catch the vision for your life for 2017, to get even more clarity for the year ahead. And finally, we want you to be here with us to celebrate New Year's Eve on December 31st. The service starts at 7 p.m. Start your evening with us and then go out and celebrate in any way you see fit. It's going to be an amazing time. It is December, it's a new month, which means we have another message in our series based on A Christmas Carol. Let's get into it. Well, good morning, Celebration. How are we feeling? Awesome. It's so good to be here with all of you. It's so good to see you. Happy holidays. I hope you're enjoying the season as much as I am, because I love this time of year. Before we get way too deep into the message, I just want to shout out and say thank you to Team Celebrate. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for all that you do. Thank you for getting here early. Thank you for setting up and setting the place so that we can have and enjoy service. Can we please give Team Celebrate a round of applause? I also want to just take this time to say hello to everybody that's watching us on the New Thought channel. We've been getting a lot of feedback. Folks have been reaching out to us, donating, thanking us for the messages, and we hear that the views have been really high. So just hello, hello, hello to everybody that's watching us on the New Thought channel as well. So as we always do, I like to review where we've been so that we can move forward. Yes, yes? Yes. So last week, our topic was, what business are you in? And we took this moment from the first chapter, or the first stave, as it's written in the book, of A Christmas Carol. Scrooge has this encounter with his old business partner, Jacob Marley. And as they're having this conversation, there's something that Jacob Marley says to Scrooge. He says that mankind was my business. Jacob Marley had spent a lot of time, just like Scrooge, focusing only on money, focusing only on his little world, this little box, and never left that box. And so because he didn't do that, he was now sentenced to travel the world in chains. The chains and the locks represented all of the weights that he had created by not making mankind his business. And so I asked the question of us last week, what business are we in? And the answer is that we're in the business of service. That we are actually all here to serve, no matter what our occupation is, we're all here to serve. And that service is really an extension of love, as A Course in Miracles would teach us. And I talked in that message that service is different than sacrifice. And service is even different than helping, because helping implies that there's someone that's less than or underneath us, but we're actually, the God in me is serving the God in you. We're equals. If you didn't hear that message, please go back. It's on YouTube. But we're going to move forward because we're in the second part of the story. And in the second part of the story, Ebenezer Scrooge meets the ghost of Christmas past. And it's a little scary for him. He's freaked out. And as I was reflecting on the second part of the story, it took me back to something that happened for me 4 or 5 years ago, right? And there was a game that came out for iPhone and iPad that I loved. It was a game called Draw Something. I don't know if anybody's ever played Draw Something. It's kind of a Pictionary type game. And so you would get a word, say, a car. And it would be a longer word than that, but we'll just say car. And you would draw a picture of a car. And it was wonderful. You had all these different colors and paints. And then you would send it to a friend. So I would play a lot with my sister or with my aunt. And it was timed. And so the picture would start to reveal itself. And then they would try to guess what it is, given a certain number of letters that they had. And so we would go back and forth. And what was interesting for me about that game was I used to tell this story that, oh, I'm not an artist. Now I'm a musician. I'm like, I can create. Give me some sound, give me some notes, give me some lyrics. I can do some things, but I don't draw. Right? My sister was the more artistic one in that way. She's also a songwriter and a singer, but she was always very crafty. She was the one that really loved her art classes. And so I used to tell this story. Oh yeah, I'm not the artist. I can't draw. I don't draw. My sister, she's the one that does that. And as I found myself playing this game, I found so much joy. And it took me back to something. I became a little kid in 3rd grade. And I remembered that back then when I was in 3rd grade, I didn't have that story. I didn't tell myself that I couldn't draw. And so when I would finish my work early, I would draw pictures of my favorite basketball players. At that time, the LA Lakers were like the best team in the country. And so I would draw pictures of Magic Johnson and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. And I would draw my name in graffiti letters and do all these wonderful things. And I just remembered the joy, and it brought me back to, wait, you actually do know how to draw, and you actually do love to draw. But because you told yourself the story for so long, you believed something that actually wasn't the truth of yourself. But it was by going back to that past memory that I was able to remember something about myself. And so this is what happens with Ebenezer Scrooge. He's taken back to his past, and we find out something very interesting about him. The first chapter opens up, and we just meet this mean man. His nephew, who was full of joy and coming in, wishing him a Merry Christmas, and every loving, kind, joyful word that was spoken, Scrooge would just meet it with meanness, right? And of course, we have that infamous phrase, bah humbug. And so we think that that's who this man is. He's just an evil, rich, mean man. That's how we're presented. That's who he is. But the second part of the story, we meet this young boy who's lonely. In the second part of the story, we meet this young boy who really doesn't have a lot. He has a sister. That's really the only family he has, and we can see through the exchange of these two young people that they love each other unconditionally. We find him as he gets older. We find him in his apprenticeship, and we see that he was a happy young man. And actually, his mentor was equally a happy and jovial. Dickens goes to great length to really explain and express the parties that they had around Christmas time, and how his mentor and his wife were just the happiest people in the town, and everybody surrounded them, and Scrooge lived in that joy and lived in that love. So that's not who we meet him in the beginning of the story. That's not how he was raised. That's not how he was mentored, even in the work that he was doing that made him wealthy. He had an example in his life of being wealthy and happy. Yes. Interesting. And then later in this second part, we meet Scrooge and the love of his life, Belle. And they're having a conversation. It's a breakup conversation. And the breakup conversation, basically she's saying to him, you love the pursuit of money more than you love me. I can't be with you. And she leaves him. And although it is true at that moment he had shifted, because of the level of poverty that he experienced, right? He vowed that he would never be poor. Because of the level of poverty that he experienced, he was going to make sure that he had when he was an adult. But he had become so consumed by that idea that he had shut away love. Belle, the love of his life. And then later, the Ghost of Christmas Past shows his love, Belle. She's married. They have a bunch of kids. They also adopt many kids because she is the embodiment of love. She was full of so much love that the extension of her relationship and her marriage just must show that love. Kids were everywhere. It was chaos, but it was loving chaos. But it expressed how big her heart is, and it expressed what could have been possible for Scrooge if he had been willing to keep his heart open and recognize that he can be happy and wealthy, that he actually already had enough in that moment with the love of his life and with his material things. So today we're going to talk about memory. We're going to talk about looking back in the past. Now, it's interesting because when we think about the past, so often, and this is true, so often Pastor Yolanda and I are encouraging you to stop thinking about the past, right? Of course, the miracle says the past is gone. It can touch me not. Because so often what we do is, what do? We use the past to beat ourselves up. Right? We use the past to keep us fixed in a place. We use the past to look at our mistakes and say, this is why my life is not working out the way it is, right? These things happen. My parents didn't do these things. And so this is why I'm experiencing the life that I'm experiencing. And when we use the past in that way, yeah, it's not good. It's an abuse. And if you've been with us long enough, you've heard me talk about and reference Paramhansa Yogananda, who talks about divine memory in man's eternal quest. And I want to take us to what he writes, because this is really the foundation of what we're talking about. Because divine memory is different than remembering the past. And what does Yogananda say? He says, or writes, memory was given to man, or humankind, to reproduce good. To abuse the power of memory is harmful. However, to recall unhappy experiences in order to learn the lessons inherent in them is a proper use of memory. And as then one may analyze his past behavior and avoid repeating in the future the wrong acts that brought painful results. And so what's happening for Scrooge is his former business partner, Jacob Marley, basically hooked him up. Because Jacob Marley had gone through this experience and was in this torturous experience for 7 years. And he basically negotiated with the ghost of Christmas past and present and the yet to come and said, my friend really needs to hear this truth. If I had known what was really going on, if I had known that by not making mankind my business, that I was actually torturing myself and would be sentenced to a life of dragging around chains in the non-physical, I never would have done it. And so there's time for my brother, there's time for Scrooge. Can you please go visit him? And so this is what our past, if we're going to use it, this is what our memory, if we're going to use it for good, can do for us. There's a ghost of Christmas past in your life right now, inviting you to look back. There may be things, like I said, that you think, oh, I'm always this way. Yeah, I've never been able to do that. But what's interesting is that when we were kids, we were absolutely fearless. We knew no limitation. And so we actually embraced the fullness of who we were and expressed the fullness of who we were until somebody criticized it. We expressed the fullness of who we are until somebody said, oh, that's a little too loud. Can you tone that down? Until somebody said, well, why are you dressed that way? And then we began to question ourselves. Oh, wait, maybe I shouldn't do that. Because we had to please these big people in our lives. The adults, the teachers, our elders. We had to make sure that the big people were happy. This is why babies do the same things over and over again when we laugh. Right? Because unfortunately, it's developing this idea that, oh, I can make the big people happy. And if I make the big people happy, then all is well. But are you making the big person within yourself happy? So, as we're considering our past, I invite you to just consider first, we don't have to go back to childhood. You don't have to go back till you're 5 years old or 6 or 7. Because we're at the end of this year. We're at the end of 2016. And as we're at the end of 2016, the Ghost of Christmas Past is inviting us to review our year. And as we review our year, there are 3 questions that we can ask ourselves. I learned this from a powerful brother who many of you know, Reverend Joel Fortinos. 3 questions to ask yourself at this moment in your life as you're reviewing your year. If you can take notes, you should write this down, because you can use it for the rest of your life. First, what should I stop doing? You look back over your life, see what 2016 was all about from January to now. What should I stop doing? The second question you ask yourself is, what should I keep doing? There's some things in your life that you added to your life in this year that absolutely have benefited your life because you're looking at it. For many of you, as I've heard so many of you talk about it, the gratitude experiment last month has been awesome. I think all of us need to keep doing the gratitude experiment. Yes, yes. If you haven't gotten the book yet, you can still join the group. We're having an awesome time together. Posting and sharing our gratitudes, and then out of that, the miracles, the blessings, the answered prayers, the unexpected checks, all of these things are happening. Yes, yes? Yes. Right? What should I stop doing? What should I keep doing? And then what should I start doing? This is when we're getting into the idea of our visions, our dreams, our goals. As I talked about it, we're going to be doing a visiting session on winter solstice. What should I start doing? What are the things that I want to add? Has there been some good things that have happened this year, and I've added those things, and I've made it a practice now. It's become a habit. Now, what can I do to add to that? Add fuel, add momentum to it, right? If your daily practice has been 5, 5, and 5 for the last 5 years, maybe it's time for 10, 10, and 10. 10 minutes of reading, 10 minutes of writing, 10 minutes of meditation, right? I always advise you really don't want to make your morning practice, don't make it a 5-hour experience. So, more than an hour is probably too much, right? Because it's supposed to be a portion of your day. We use our daily practice to go out in the world and be great, right? The daily practice is not the thing, right? Just like, we take a shower so that we can be fresh and clean out in the world. That's the point of the shower is not just to stay in the shower all day. Yes, yes? Right? So this is what our daily spiritual practice is, the same thing, right? So many times we think, oh, I got to be super spiritual, and if I can meditate for 3 hours, this will be all. You don't have to do that. Nobody's requiring that, right? And definitely God is not requiring that, and CSC is not teaching that. But I do encourage you, again, if it's been 5 minutes, 5 minutes, 5 minutes, well, maybe in the new year, maybe we can increase it, right? And as I love to say, set yourself up to win. So don't make it crazy, right? Don't go from 5 to 30 minutes, right? You're not, I'm sorry, you're not going to be able to keep it up. You're not. Not because you're bad, not because there's something wrong with you or you're not good enough or spiritual enough. It's just the way human nature works. If we give ourselves small increments, we can achieve it, right? I'm reminded of Dan Millman in Body, Mind, Mastery. He talks about that from the perspective of athletics, right? That so often we'll see athletes that will try to attain a huge feat. Maybe, if you could lift 100 pounds, then all of a sudden they jump up to 200 pounds instead of going from 100 to 125 to 150. And they actually may go from 100 to 200 and be able to lift it, right? And so they think, oh, I'm amazing. But inevitably, they injure themselves. And so what we know to be true, it's a spiritual practice, and this is what he's talking about in the book, this idea that it mirrors our own spiritual practice, that if we just increments, 100 to 125, 125 to 150, 150 to 175, then to 200, then you're there, you're solid. Nobody can take that away. And furthermore, not even about anyone taking it away, but then the winds and the waves of your life. The circumstances that happen in your life won't be able to blow you out of your experience. This is why we talk so often, and I'm still so grateful for my spiritual practice as we're in this post-election cycle. Right? I'm still grateful for my spiritual practice as we watched Ava DuVernay's 13th last night. Thank God I have a spiritual practice. Right? It wasn't new information for me, but I had a lot of feelings. Right? Brought up a lot of stuff. And so I have to have something that brings me back to what is absolutely true. Otherwise, that's just going to wipe me out. And then before you know it, it's 3, 4, 5 weeks, couple months, and you haven't gone within. You forgot that you had peace within you. You haven't listened to messages that are inspiring or encouraging. And y'all know what I'm talking about? Is it just me? No. So our life review, what should I keep doing? What should I stop doing? What should I start doing? Just take a breath for a moment and just consider that. Consider those questions. As we're talking about divine memory, one of the things that we must stop doing is living from the past, beating ourselves up about the past. What should I stop doing is abusing. I love the words, and the first time that I heard these words from Yogananda, it arrested me. I had never heard anyone say that that memory was a superpower. It was given to man to reproduce good, and to abuse the power of memory is harmful. I never even thought about it from that perspective, that we're abusing a superpower that we have, right? My hands can do so many different things. I can use my hands to lift things. I can use my hands to lovingly touch my partner. I can do all of these things, or I can use that hand to punch somebody, but that's an abuse of this divine thing that I've been given. Your memory is equal to that. It's equally divine. And if you're using it for anything other than reproducing good, it's an abuse. But he goes on, he says, however, to recall unhappy experiences in order to learn the lessons inherent in them is a proper use of memory. And so, again, this is what Ebenezer Scrooge was being offered. It reminded me of there's a message that I heard my dad preach a long time ago when I was a teenager. But he preached a message called Back to the Future. I almost used that title today, just to honor him. But what he was talking about was that as we look in the past, what we can recognize, and we look in our own past within humanity, every idea, every progressive idea actually already existed, right? Those genius ideas usually existed in the past and everyone finally caught up with it. And then we changed the future based on an old idea, technically. And so what you have the opportunity to do as we're using our divine memory is to go back to the future. We go back, and as we go back, just as I did, I went back and realized I had a memory about my third grade self being in joy. I had a memory of my third grade self loving to draw. I had a memory of my third grade self drawing well, and then it changed the future. Because that's no longer my story anymore. That old story about not being able to draw, and I'm not an artist, well, I'm a musician, but visual arts, that's not my thing. It changed my future. And so this is what we have the opportunity to do. Go back to the future. Go back and change your present and change your future. I want to leave you with this last idea from Yogananda. Same section in Man's Eternal Quest. He writes that memory was given to you to practice the recollection of good things until you fully remember the highest good, God. Beholding only goodness in everything, you will certainly find that one day the invisible power will shatter all the little windows of thoughts and sensations and feelings through which you have been seeing only glimpses of the divine harmony in creation. You will behold through an infinite opening the omnipresent goodness we call God. And he leaves us with these final words. Rouse the flames of divine memory until they burn away your forgetfulness, and you remember that you always have been and are even now one with the Lord. Rouse up the flames of your divine memory. This powerful superpower that you have, use it. There is a ghost of Christmas past within you. Listen to it. There's a ghost of Christmas past within you that wants to take you on a journey back to your past to begin to see things differently, to remind you of how powerful you really are, to remind you of how good you really are, to remind you of how loved you really are, to remind you of all that you have within you that was always there in your life, but you forgot. Forgot because you told a different story about that past, and so that was your current reality. But we have the opportunity through the power of divine memory to go back to the future. And when we go back, recognizing that it's a superpower, when we go back in love, when we go back recognizing that there's something for us to learn, we change the present, and then we change the future. And we can do that with just these 3 simple questions. What should I start doing? What should I stop doing? And what should I keep doing? I invite everybody to stand in this moment. And we take a breath in through our nose and out through our mouths. Mother, Father, God, we are grateful and thankful, and I am grateful and thankful for the power of this story. I'm grateful for the symbol of the ghost of Christmas past, that there is a unconditionally loving presence that takes us back through our lives to see and remember who and what we really are. There is a beautiful power within us that is inviting us to remember that we're bigger than any circumstance that we may have created right here and right now. To remind us that the story we have been telling and speaking about ourselves may not actually be the whole story. I am so grateful that the symbol of the ghost of Christmas past is always alive. And we have the opportunity to ask ourselves a very profound question. What should we stop doing? What should we keep doing? And what should we start doing? And through this power of reflection and through the power of asking these questions, we change the present and we can change the future. I am so grateful and thankful to hear and know and remember the words of our great teacher, Paramhansa Yogananda, who reminds us that we have a great superpower of good, a great superpower of divine memory, and it was given to us to remember and recall good. It was given to us to remember and to recall God. It was given to us to remember and to recall the goodness of you that is always present and available in our lives. I am so grateful and thankful to remember and know that just as we have the superpower of imagination, just as we have the superpower of visualization, just as we have the superpower to be able to speak things into existence, so we also have the superpower to take things that do not longer exist from the past and recreate them here in the present. In this moment, we forgive ourselves and we set ourselves free for any moment that we abused this power of divine memory. We let it go, we let it go. We recognize that if we knew better, we would have done better, but today we know better. Today we are clear about the power that we have. And so we move forward in victory, knowing that we have this friend of memory, knowing that we have this friend in the symbol of the ghost of Christmas past. And we allow the journey. We allow every thought to come forward. We allow every picture to come forward. We allow every smell, every sound that evokes the memory. We allow it to come forward. And we transform our present and our future. I'm so grateful and thankful for these beings, these beautiful souls that are here in this space and within the sound of my voice. I am grateful for their power of divine memory. For I know that it is as we look back and understand where we've been and how we got to where we are, that then we can transform the present and the future. I'm so grateful that through these individual lives and collectively through our lives, collectively in this country, collectively on this planet, we will look and see how we have gotten to the place that we are and remember that we are bigger than the circumstance of what's happening now, that we are bigger than the expressions of fear and doubt and worry that are being expressed right now. We will go back to a time when we remember that we knew our oneness. We will go back to a time and remember our unity. We will go back to a time and remember our harmony. And as we remember this absolute truth, that there is one race, there is one family, there is one glorious people on this planet, it is out of that we will then attract the solutions that will heal our planet, the solutions that will heal our country, the solutions that will heal individual relationships, the solutions that will heal families, the solutions that will heal our minds. I am so grateful for the ghost of Christmas past that is calling us to look at the past of this country and look at the past choices that have been made across this planet so that we can make new choices in this present. And so, like our brother Ebenezer Scrooge, we heed the word. Like our brother Ebenezer Scrooge, we make the change so that joy becomes our only experience. For this, I am so very grateful, and I release this word now with expectation, knowing that my word never returns to me void. The word that I speak is creative, and so it is operating even now on our behalf. Together we lift up our voices and we say, Amen, Amen. Ashe. And so it is. So it is. Thank you, God.